Hello all my lovely viewers. I'm Dakian and I'm here to bring you a RPG review this time. You might not know this about me, but I actually play more role-playing games than I do miniature war games. Of course, I spend more time painting miniatures than I do either of those things, but when it comes to actual gaming, most of my time is actually spent with RPGs. And so I'm here to review a newly published role-playing game. Well, newly. This book is new. The content is in many ways familiar if you're a veteran of the role-playing hobby. But let me explain what this is. This is called Heroquest Glorantha. And Heroquest is the name of the gaming system. It's previously been available in a couple of different editions. The latest edition of the core rules looks like this. It's called the second edition Heroquest. And this book is a generic system. It's set up to be used in lots of different settings. This book, which is thicker and hardbound, is for use in a very specific setting, that of Glorantha. So this new book is approximately 256 pages, of which about 240 are actual text. It costs $40 from the publisher's website, and probably 40 American dollars. Well, $39.99. Probably the same from your local retailer. Now, when reviewing role-playing games, you have to talk about two factors, two parts to the game: the system and the setting. By system, I mean the rules system, how the rules mechanics work. By setting, I mean the background material about the world in which, or the universe in which the game takes place. Both of these things are important to gamers in varying degrees. Some people are more into having a solid system. That's very important to them. Others don't care so much about system as long as they have a fun setting to play in. And yet again, others want a good combination of both. Now, the balance of the material provided here in this book is pretty good. It's out of these 240 pages, I would say that 60 are pure rules, pure system material. Another 80 are about pure background, pure setting material. And the remaining 100 pages are a combination of both. What I mean by that is that a chapter like game mechanics, that's pure rules. And introductory chapter like the world of Glorantha, that's pure background, whereas a chapter like Gloranthan Communities is a mix because it contains both rules and examples integrated into the rules from the setting. It's not really possible to break the two apart. Or, for example, the monster list with Gloranthan creatures. These are specifically creatures from the world of Glorantha. Oh, and about the physical production, it's glossy, pretty good stock paper, mostly black and white, some color plates, background plates, some color illustrations, mainly maps. Some of them very nice. This map is beautiful. Unfortunately, there's about a centimeter or two missing in the fold. Where, I mean, if you're a Gloranthan veteran, you know what the cities that are in this middle here are named, but otherwise you will be perhaps a bit confused. So, if we start talking about these two parts of the game, let's start with the setting, because The setting of Glorantha has a long history. If you don't know what it is arguably the oldest RPG setting. You can debate whether Glorantha or Tekkamil were first. Tekkamil was the first to have an actual RPG set in it, but there were board games set in Glorantha published before Tekkamil. So, in a way, material about Glorantha was published first, even though the role-playing game came a few years later. What is it? It is a world which is based on the creators, Greg Stafford's studies of mythology, meaning that myths of the various deities and the way those myths inform the present-day societies in the world is the core concept of this world. For most societies, the way to gain, to achieve any of your goals is to get the help of the gods, and you get the help of the gods by adhering to their strictures and by recreating the myths that are crucial to them. This is known as the Heroquest, hence the title of the game. I'm not going to go into a long dissertation about what Glorantha is. I just want to point out that this is a world that has been developed by the author since the 60s. The torch has been carried on by several other writers who contributed to it, and it is, I would say, the most developed setting. Tekkamil has not received that much development. Tekkamil was too tied to the original author, M.A.R. Barker, and nobody's really carried on the legacy after him. And Tekkamil is a world that is kind of difficult to get into. Glorantha is very, very easy to get into because on the surface it has many similarities to Earth history, even though that similarity is usually just skin deep. And here's an example of the history, by the way. This illustration. There's lots of illustrations here, and some of them are new, and some of them are reprints of old illustrations. This is actually an illustration, if I recall correctly, this is from White Bear and Red Moon, which was the very first board game set in this world of Glorantha. And this is the titular White Bear, Herrick the Berserk. Anyway, it's an amazing world. Glorantha is incredibly detailed, incredibly broad, incredibly big. And in fact, there is another supplement. There are 2 huge books, much thicker than this one, totaling, I think, about 800 pages, called The Guide to Glorantha, which you can get if you just want to know only setting information. The setting information in this book is what you need to play the game. It's not all the deep detail, but it's enough to get you started, and it has a lot of fascinating hints about more stuff that is out there. And it's kind of hard for me to judge because everything that's in this book was already known to me. It's difficult for me to judge how a newcomer could digest this stuff. But I think and I hope that it's presented in a way that a beginner could start to assimilate the information. So yeah, my grade for I give it top grades for the setting, of course, and a very high grade for the presentation of the setting. Let's move on to the rules. The rule system of Heroquest Glorantha is essentially exactly the same as in this book I showed you before, Heroquest 2, as it's popularly known. Very little has been changed. No actual rule has been changed. They made a few tweaks to some numbers here and there in a few charts. But otherwise, it's the same game. And oh, you might wonder, by the way, why would anybody buy this book if everything you need is in this book plus the Glorantha information? Well, this book is intended as a generic book. It contains a few brief example settings, including Glorantha, and also pretty extensive information on how to sort of construct your own setting. And if that's what interests you, then you should get this book instead, of course. But anyway, back to Heroquest Glorantha and the system that joins them together. This system is what's known as a narrativist system, in that it is intended to help you tell stories, narratives. It is not primarily intended to simulate any sort of reality. It's only intended to simulate story reality, what sort of things happen in stories. And it's not intended to be a system where you can sort of game the rules and it's not intended for power gaming, let's put it this way. It's a streamlined, somewhat abstract system, by which I mean that it has a core resolution mechanic that it uses for everything. There are, for example, no specific rules for combat, which many role-playing games have. They single out combat as this special area that needs a lot of special rules. Not in Heroquest. Conflicts with weapons are handled the same as conflicts with words or conflicts with anything else. It's all the same basic system. It's a very scalable system. It's based on rolling d20s. It provides the smooth progression of abilities from a nobody to a god. It can all present them on the same scale. It's not perfect. It has a few little bumps in it. For example, the fact that a score of 19 and a score of 20 mean exactly the same thing mechanically, which is unfortunate. But since the mechanics are not the main point of the game, you can accept it and move on. Because as I said, story is paramount. There is, for example, there are no rules for simulating the environment or setting difficulties for specific tasks according to how hard it would be, and realistically speaking. No, difficulties are set according to how difficult it needs to be at this point in the story. There is even a mechanic which is optional, you can use it if you want, called the pass-fail cycle, which makes difficulties increase as players succeed, so that they will have some sort of setback eventually, which is the way most stories work. The heroes don't just win all the time. They have to have some sort of setback for it to be dramatic. And on the other hand, when the players and the heroes fail in the pass-fail cycle, the game will decrease difficulties until they start winning again. So, but as I said, this is an optional rule. You don't have to do it this way. I like this system. It's clean. The basics of it are easy to understand. It's, as I said, very scalable. It can be used to sort of enhance your imagination instead of limiting it, which I like. So the basic system gets top marks for me. So is there nothing wrong with this book? Well, I could quibble with the proofreading. There are a few. There's textual errors. There's typos. There's some bad grammar here and there. Most books have this. It's not anything unusual. I have complained about a few of the charts being less than informative. For example, the extended contest resolution points chart and the one of the central charts, the simple contest results chart, it's kind of pointless. Let me explain by showing you the same chart in this book. In this book, the contest results table tells you which part is contestant A and which contestant B, and whether A or B gets the victory. In this version, you just have to figure it out for yourself, which is kind of dumb. This chart, by the way, contains the only substantial rules change between these, namely when in this book, the older book, when both contestants get the same success level, the low roll wins. They've changed this now to high roll wins, which I prefer because of mathematical reasons I won't go into here because it'll take a long while. But the new version is better. However, this chart is useless unless you understand the rule, and if you understand the rule, you don't really need the chart anyway. So that's a minor mistake. Also, they have in the center piece of the rules chapter a 12-page example of play going through the most complex kind of mechanic they have, what's called the group extended contest. And unfortunately, they make a few mistakes in it. That really, when you have a piece of text that's really supposed to be sort of the main document for helping players understand. I mean, because not everyone can understand dry rules text and internalize it easily. Some people need a concrete example to show them how to do things. So it's really good that it's there, but they really should have gone over it more with a fine-tooth comb to make it perfect. But it gives you the idea. So, summing up. Do I recommend this product? Of course I do. This is the best version of the Heroquest rules presented so far. Even, as I said, I have some slight quibbles with the actual presentation of them, but yeah, I mean, gamers are familiar with these kinds of, typos and little mistakes. We can power through that and figure it out on our own. We're used to that sort of thing. And it's set in the best fantasy role-playing setting ever conceived. So, yeah, what's not to like? If you're into role-playing games, if you're into fantasy, you should pick up a copy of this book, without a doubt. Well, thank you for listening to me ramble about this for so long. Please leave any comments about this review format, if you felt I went on for too long, if I should have summarized it quicker, or if I should have gone on longer, explained in even more detail. If there's any questions you have about the game, you can ask those and I might answer them if I can. And yeah, just anything you think of and you need answered. But until next video, or next time I answer a comment, this is Doc Ian, signing off.